during an awful pandemic that the world is suffering, a crop circle has come down, which has highlighted a part of the virus which seems to help us fight it. And it contains a lot of very specific information, which only I think virologists would know. So we've either got the usual guys who can go out just for a laugh after the pub, who've got an extensive knowledge of virology and also can lay down crop without breaking it, or we've got a message from another intelligence that's trying to point us possibly towards a solution for this current pandemic that we're undergoing.
Well, Gary, welcome to the Rob Freeman UFO World Explorer YouTube channel. And Gary King, and a world-renowned crop circle researcher. And we had the pleasure of meeting you in Brazil at a symposium there.
That's right. Yeah, some years ago now, wasn't it? About 4 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, we were totally entranced about all the information you had to share. Gary, I'm really fascinated about the investigation process. I mean, you used to be a lawyer, so you're a very, very thorough investigator, not just for the sake of investigating, but in how you would present things, because in a court of law, you have to convince the judge and jury.
Sure, and that's the way I like to go around things. I was trained to think that way.
Exactly.
And so evidence is everything to me, and any problems with evidence, as you know, in a court of law, the burden is on the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and there are plenty of doubts with regards to people who claim that they just go out and knock these things out in the middle of the night in the darkness. So obviously, when with something like this, the initial thing is that you need to satisfy yourself that something out of the ordinary is happening. So my initial investigations, which really I'd conducted kind of off the radar, I didn't get involved in any groups or things like that. I kind of just did my own research for 10 years, visiting the crop circles. I didn't live in Wiltshire at that time. I lived sort of 70 miles away. So I would travel down and I would go to crop circles. And I was lucky enough to have a teacher who took me there in the first instance, who pointed out various things to me to look out for on the ground, such as the condition of the laid crop. It's common sense in my view that if somebody crushes the crop with boards, then every 18 inches, you're going to see breaks in the crop. You're going to see it's going to be damaged. And so if you enter a crop circle in the morning at first light and it's just been discovered, and you find that there is no damage to that crop, then you have a big question mark. How did somebody make this crop lay down without damaging it? Because when we watch the demonstrations that these guys who make the crop circles show us, there's always damage. That's the first thing. The second thing is little nuances. For example, I've attended a number of crop circles where all the crop, for example, will be going in a clockwise direction, the main body of the lay. And then you go to the edge where the standing crop is, and you'll find 2 or 3 stems that are going in the opposite direction all the way around the formation, which is hundreds and hundreds of square meters. That then adds a complete level of difficulty to actually laying those 2 or 3 stems down in the opposite direction. It would take an inordinate amount of time, and why bother when most people don't see it? The other thing is that at the end of the season, the wheat heads, they turn like bananas because the weight of the seeds becomes heavier than the sort of stem can withstand. And so you end up getting these crops which bend over at the top just before it's about to be harvested. If a crop circle occurs in that kind of at that time in that medium, then we find that the laid crop that's on the floor, all the heads have been straightened. So and if you try and grab one of the, the standing tufts and you try and straighten it, it just bends back again. It's just like a spring, it pops back. So these are kind of details which not many people get to know about, which defy an explanation. I've asked scientists, I've asked farmers, I've asked various people, and no one can offer me a reasonable explanation as to why something like that would occur. So they'll put flags up, they put question marks up and say, okay, well, I suspect that the origin of this crop circle is not human-made. There's something else going on here, and we can speculate about what that might be.
Fantastic. So bring us up to date. What are you involved with now? I know, you have your Facebook page, Against the Grain.
Mm-hmm.
I invite people to go there.
Sure.
You've been involved with Gaia. You're currently in Mexico doing work.
Yeah.
Just bring us up to date with all the things you're involved in now, Gary.
I've been looking into the history of the crop circles. One of the episodes I wrote for Gaia was on the history, and they go back. And that's one of the reasons I'm having a breakfast meeting tomorrow, funnily enough, with 8 military generals here from Mexico. I think they're getting interested now because of the recent Pentagon releases, and they're very curious about the crop circles, and they want me to present to them what my findings and research. But also, there are reports from 1952 of crop circles having appeared here in Mexico, and they're going to search the files for me and see what information they can find. So it's all exciting stuff. It's all going on.
Excellent. And any new exciting advancements or discoveries just in the last year or so?
Well, I suppose the most recent interesting discovery was I did a piece for Mexican TV here. So I've also produced it in English. You can see that on my YouTube channel, about the COVID-19 crop circle that appeared last year. So there was a crop circle which looked like a virus, and of course everybody said, oh, it's a man-made hoax, blah blah blah. But when we looked at the condition of the ley, there was no damage, and there's some great video footage done by Nick Ball and Hugh Newman showing that the crop is in pristine condition. And there's a PhD psychologist called Jerry Croth, who's written a couple of books on crop circles now, who did some research into this. So I contacted him and did an interview with him. He published a book on Kindle, which is very inexpensive and well worth reading. And what it was, there's sort of, it looks like a blob with these sort of spikes coming off of it, but one of the spikes is much bigger than the others. And there are 8 tufts of crop sort of in the end of it, in the bulbous end of it. So, he speculated as to what that might be. And it turns out that there are 9 spikes on this crop circle, and the 8th one is the one, because there are 8 tufts, we called it 8. The 8th one is enlarged, like as if it's under a microscope. So he contacted some virologists and said, what's the deal here with spike protein 8? And it turns out that spike protein 8 is very connected to getting our immune system into gear to actually fight the virus. So in the center of the crop circle, there are 3 small circles and 3 larger circles. And then just on the outside of it, there are 3 sort of bulbous half circles. And when you look at the literature, you find that there are 3 envelope proteins on the outside of the virus, which corresponds to what was in the crop circle. And in the center of it, there are 3 small circles which represent the RNA. That's what's inside the virus. And that RNA codes amino acids to replicate, which are the 3 bigger circles inside. So I tried to find out if the vaccines that have been produced contain any information about or taken from spike protein 8, but that's proprietary knowledge. We can't kind of get hold of that at the moment. Maybe that will come out in the future. But what we have here is, during an awful pandemic that the world is suffering, a crop circle has come down, which has highlighted a part of the virus which seems to help us fight it. And it contains a lot of very specific information, which only I think virologists would know. So we've either got the usual guys who can go out just for a laugh after the pub, who've got an extensive knowledge of virology and also can lay down crop without breaking it, or we've got a message from another intelligence that's trying to point us possibly towards a solution for this current pandemic that we're undergoing.
Well, that's very interesting, Gary. Now, do you find typically these crop circles have some kind of a message, whether obvious or whether coded, and you really have to work to get the message?
There is a difference between, I went back to university in 2005 and I studied language and communication, um, particularly semiotics, how we derive meaning from things like, why does red mean danger to us? Why does green mean safe? Why does, connotative meaning and denotative meanings? It's very interesting. And what I established was that in any communication, you've got a difference between a communication which could be lengthy, like a book, and you've got a message which is like a text message which you send to your wife and say, I'm running late, I'm going to be half an hour late. That's a message. Mm-hmm. So we have both in the crop circle phenomena. We have individual crop circles which give us specific messages, like, for example, the alien face that was at Chilbolton. We have Euler's equation, which was encoded into a crop circle, which is a very beautiful mathematical formula. And there are a number of other individual crop circles which give us messages. But over the campaign of the crop circles, we found that there is a lot of hidden and implicit geometry hidden within the formations, which we have to tease out. And the most prolific of those has been a repetition of pi, the golden section, which is related to the Fibonacci sequence, and squaring the circle. Now, a lot of people, when you mention these geometrical things to people, they go, oh, no, I was never very good at maths at school and I don't want to know all about that. But it's not really mathematical. It is, but it isn't. It's when you look back at the ancient Greeks, they used geometry as a philosophical tool for understanding the unfolding of creation. It's about the question of, are we here by chance, just by random accident, or is there an intelligent design behind the universe? And when you look at things like the anthropic principle, which say, there's a wonderful book written called The Goldilocks Effect, which says that the parameters for life, the chances of life emerging, and for us to be here having this conversation, are so fantastic that it shouldn't be here, but here we are. And so we can accept the modern scientific theory that, it's just random mutations and we just happen to be, if there's multiple universes, we just happen to be on a universe where all the parameters are working and so on. Or you can say, after so long, so many coincidences stack up, like, for example, when you're born, you have 5 teeth in each quarter of your mouth, which fall out and are replaced by 8 teeth. 5 and 8 are 13. Well, 5, 8, and 13 form the first sort of 3 main numbers of the Fibonacci sequence. You find those in flowers, you find those in nature. Even Venus, our nearest planet, goes around us and draws a big 5-fold rosette in the sky over 8 Earth years or 13 Venus years. The Earth, the relative sizes of the Earth and the Moon square the circle, which we find also hidden within Stonehenge. There's a squared circle. So our ancestors were well switched on to this. And recent discoveries, because Bolsonaro's hacking down the Amazon, we're finding squared circles in big ditch and ramparts underneath the trees in the Amazon, which goes back before the last ice age. So it seems that humanity was very, very, very connected to these geometric symbols, which help them organize their societies. And so I believe we're being reminded of knowledge that we've forgotten as a civilization, that once held us all together in cooperation, and now we're in competition with each other. And I think it's fair to say that the world's kind of falling apart at the seams with all the things that are going on at the moment. And they're perhaps trying to remind us that, this stuff held everybody together before, because you knew that the life wasn't an accident, that the creation of the universe wasn't random, and that there is a meaning to life other than just making things to sell each other and living by an economy. That's my view. I'm not emotionally or spiritually motivated to convert anybody. I'm almost at the point where, I can't say I don't care if people believe or not, but I'm really unattached to, but what I am interested in, because of my legal training and because I like to look at both sides of any argument, I am keen to lay those facts out before the public and allow them to make their own conclusions. And that's kind of how I see my role. I'll lay out the information like cards on the table, and what happens with it after that is roll the dice.
And there's no doubt, Gary, you have a very personal passion for this. And really, it's the same as us. We have a personal passion for what we're doing, and we're sharing it. And we're really not out to convert anybody either.
No.
It's really, since we're discovering all these things and involved in it, then why not document and share? But once again, people have to make up their own minds on all of this themselves.
Yeah, I think I'm seriously opposed to forcing people to believe your view in anything. You know, I think missionaries of all types have not done us humanity any favors in the world, you know. So the last thing humanity needs right now is for some other crazy guy to come out, Manic Street Preacher, saying, "Oh, you've got to believe me." No, you know, the crop circles are very inert. They're to me, they're like wise teachers that don't say, "Do this, do that, believe this, believe that." They say, "Well, here we are in the middle of nowhere. It's entirely your choice whether you engage with us. And when you do engage with us, there's no ready answers. What do you think about it? What's your contribution to it?" And because they're adopting that attitude, I think it's best for me to adopt that attitude as well and just say, "Well, look, here's the information I've found. Make your own mind up."